Okay, so the news from Ukraine today, July 20th, it's Wednesday, is mostly political. And it's really interesting. Every day as I do these, I cover daily events, but as I do, a pattern tends to form. I look at a dozen or more articles and you see particular patterns. And so today, it's just like this weird smoke and mirrors, almost funhouse effect to what is actually happening and what the Russians are saying. So here first, in this article, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, negotiations with Ukraine make no sense now. Well, why wouldn't they make sense? Well, he says, I have no doubt that the Ukrainians will not be allowed to negotiate until the Americans decide that we've already scandalized enough, made chaos. Now we can leave them to themselves. We'll see how they get out. Well, wait a minute. Okay, first, Russia started the war. It wasn't the Americans. The Americans weren't behind it. They weren't trying to trigger it. They are supplying weapons, but they're supplying weapons so that Ukrainians can defend themselves against Russians. Now, he goes on to say the fact that Ukraine is literally being kept from any constructive steps. What? It's not like the Americans want to come to peace, but wait, here's why he's saying that. Because once the Russians grab a bunch of area, they're going to say, no, 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 we want to have peace talks. And these, warmongers over here want to keep, no, no, no. Once they, if as long as they have secured land, they're going to want to have peace talks. You just watch. Now, he's talking about they just want to keep it going. That's not the way Zelenska, this is President Zelensky's wife. Her last name is it's Olena Zelenska. I don't know if that's just something that they do in Ukraine or what, but the First Lady of Ukraine has requested more defensive weapons from the United States. It's not like the United States is like pushing it on her. She's requesting more that can be used to prevent Russian airstrikes that, quote, kill children in their strollers, which actually has happened, and that can protect Ukrainians from Russian terrorist attack. These killed children in their strollers. Were they the Nazis? What's going on here? They need air defense systems. We want every father and mother to be able to tell their children, go to sleep peacefully. There will be no more airstrikes, she says. By the way, I think this is one of the babies that was killed in airstrikes. So, what Lavrov is saying, it just doesn't jive. Here's another article about Zelensky. The last was Radio Free Europe. This is The Guardian. The answer is right here, said Zelensky in Washington, D.C. Help us stop this terror against Ukrainians, and this will be our joint great victory in the name of life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. And then Lindsey Graham, my senator, said they're not asking for U.S. soldiers, said Republican South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham after the speech. They're asking for U.S. weapons. They're asking. It's not being pushed on them. Quote, again, Zelensky, I'm asking for weapons, weapons that could not be used to wage war on somebody else's land, but to protect one's home and the right to live in them. Okay, so that's what's going on. So what Lavrov is saying, Lavrov just lies. I mean, he just does. I mean, it's crazy. Okay, let's go on. Before that, Coca-Cola is all chemicals, says Putin. Okay, he might be right. Russian President Putin has derided Coca-Cola and suggested that Ivan tea, a medicinal brew made from Siberian fireweed, is a more useful refreshment. Well, why did he say that? Well, there's two reasons. One, Putin was approached by Alexander Klonov from the Union of Ivan Tea Producers, who proposed the government help boost the production of the traditional Russian drink. Indeed, it is certainly more useful than Coca-Cola, which is all chemicals. Now, he's right. Coca-Cola is just a bunch of chemicals mixed up or whatever. It's sugar water. It's not really good for you. Where Ivan tea is made from fermented leaves of the fireweed plant. Enjoyed for both its refreshing taste and its medicinal properties, it is a natural anti-inflammatory beverage. Contains 16 amino acids and is packed with vitamins B and C. Now, I've never heard of Ivan tea. Perhaps it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know. But here's what's important. Putin's comments came on Coca-Cola after the American beverage giant announced last month it would withdraw from the Russian market in response to the ongoing military offensive in Ukraine. He didn't have a problem with Ivan tea or with Coca-Cola before this, but now he does. Now he's bad-mouthing it because it's left the market. So again, the smoke and mirrors effect. And this is just a silly example, but there are other examples as well that are not silly. Putin, this is, oh, by the way, this last one was in RT, Russian television, and so this is what the Russians get to see. The next one is in Pravda, which is also what Russians would be seeing. Putin again, no matter how much the Western and so-called supranational elites strive to preserve the existing order of things, a new era is coming, a new stage in world history. Well, the Russians have been known to say that kind of thing before, but this is to overthrow the old order, the international order, the rule of law, and Zelensky said this masterfully in some of his speeches, that the rule of law was being subverted if you allow Russia to run over one of its neighbors and take its territory. Like, what's the point of the UN at that point? What's the point of international law? Why should we even pay it lip service? Putin is also pointing to the racist and neo-colonial nature. What? Neo-colonial. Wait, you're running over Ukraine, taking their land and annexing it, and you're calling somebody else neo-colonial? Okay. Putin also pointed to the racist and neo-colonial nature of the idea of the golden billion dominating. Now, the golden billion is not something that we talk about here in the United States. I actually had to look it up because I kept hearing it in Russian media, and I'm like, what is it? The golden billion is the theory that indefinite elites pull strings to amass their own wealth and destroy regular people's lives. So there's maybe I can use the Marxist terms. The bourgeoisie is amassing the wealth and destroying the lives of the proletariat, but it's popular in Russian-speaking world. It's not something that we're paying attention to or even thinking in terms of here, although he's thinking that here is what's doing it. Russian leader is confident that such a model is based on the illusion of exclusivity that divides nations into first and second grade. Well, again, remember where Putin is. Putin has just been excluded from the West because of his actions in Ukraine, and now he is going, oh, I can't sell my gas there, I can't sell my oil there. How about India? How about China? Iran? Let's see who else. So he's trying to create another ensemble of countries with whom he can operate and sell his goods because he's been excluded from the West. So when you understand that, it makes sense. Okay, Ukraine and Russia Russia near a deal to end the blockade of grain exports. When I first saw this, I thought this was a few days ago when Turkey intervened and started working out the grain exports. I thought, why would Russia want to do that? Well, Russia will benefit in a big way because they'll get to sell all their wheat as well, and their exports. Yes, Ukraine will get to sell some whatever of their exports are left, and I'll explain why I say that in a moment. But Russia's going to benefit from this, so they actually want to see this deal go through. But what's going on in Ukraine? It's impossible to harvest more than 12,000 hectares of sown fields in this particular region because of shelling in the fields. Now, that's not the only one. There's another one in Kharkiv. As a result of the shelling, two fields caught on fire. This was 60 hectares. With the work of the rescuers, about 66 hectares were saved. More than 130 hectares of grain had been destroyed in the region. Now, this was Dnepropetrovsk. I don't know if I'm slaughtering the name. I'm sorry. I'm not Ukrainian. Kharkiv region, and another one, same kind of article in Kherson. Due to shelling, the occupiers on purpose do not allow the rescuers or residents to extinguish the fires. So there's this war on grain in Ukraine while they're making this deal because the Russians will benefit, and if they can destroy the grain there, then go ahead and export. So it's again this weird smoke and mirrors kind of effect. Um, Another news. Now this has nothing to do with a theme, but I think it's really useful because it preempts the theme of Russia being able to say things that aren't true. President Zelensky stressed the importance of creating a parliamentary commission for the control of foreign weapons, and then he's saying, yeah, we need to do this for the weapons provided by our partners. I want to emphasize there was not a single ground for any of the claims on our state, but it's to remove any manipulations of Russian propagandists and those who will claim that Ukraine or somewhere else, that these weapons are being smuggled somewhere or these weapons are being sold on the black market or whatever else. So he's wise to be doing that. Okay. Um, in other news, now Russia is simultaneously calling this a special military operation, and they are not recruiting like full stage like for a war because they can't because it's a special military operation. But in the Russian-held areas, they're engaged in conscription of the locals who may or may not want to fight. The forcible conscription to the army of the so-called DPR and LNR, that's the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic. Although I prefer to say by Russia started the war, full-scale war, she said, but since 24 February, we've seen men stopped in the streets, having passports taken, and forcibly sent to the army. How can I make Russia accountable in court? This is a violation of my rights, he says. Since February, I haven't been able to go out in the street because there are patrol cars in my town searching for men without exception. They are hunting us like stray cats. Yeah, because they need to replenish those that have been killed in the war. And the numbers of recruits from the local, the Donetsk and Luhansk that go into the fighting I mean, it's like going into a wood chipper. These guys get slaughtered. So it's a terrible thing. China, this is the last thing. China calls for immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. Now that's a really interesting story. China wants, and this is RT, okay, but it's going to be picked up in the Ukrainian press as well. China wants an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine and the resumption of talks between all parties involved in the conflict, including the US and NATO, its ambassador said on Wednesday. Okay, so what China is calling for is the immediate ceasefire, resumption of peace talks. All parties involved should be engaged, including Russia, US, NATO allies. Great. I think that would have been a great idea on February 25th. Like, where were you when this first started? Now that Russia has grabbed up a bunch of land and controls um, Donetsk, Luhansk, much of Kherson and Zaporizhia and Kharkiv, now that they hold this land, you want to do it? Something seems off. According to the ambassador, Beijing believes that national sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all countries must be respected and that the legitimate security concerns of all countries must be taken seriously. Well, this is going to be a little bit tricky. The foreign minister, Dmitry Kuleba, declared that peace negotiations with Moscow would make sense only after Russia's defeat. And there's a reason for it. Because if Russia's holding this land and then is trying to negotiate peace, they're going to say, well, we want peace. And they just keep fighting. And it's so Ukraine's the aggressor. No, you're the aggressor that took their stuff. And then so if you break into my house, take my stuff, and then go to your house with it, and then I come and get it, you're saying I'm the aggressor. No, you were the aggressor that started this. Maria Zakharova, this is the Russian Foreign Affairs Ministry spokeswoman, said about Kuleba's statement that Ukrainian government did not want peace for the country, and instead of talking with Russia, was choosing to sing along with Washington's tune. Well, no, they want peace. They just want their land back. I mean, you came and stole. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has previously accused the U.S. and allies of actively betting on a continued war and not allowing Kyiv to think, talk, nor talk about or discuss peace. Look, you could have stopped this, Russia, just by stopping your aggression. So, okay, here's an Interfax Ukraine article on the same thing where the Foreign Ministry of Ukraine has called on China not to politicize Russia's aggression. We hope that China will not politicize the issues of Russian aggression against Ukraine. We expect that Beijing instead will use its influence on Moscow in order to make it stop the war and return to the respect for the UN Charter and international law. That means not invading a sovereign country and chopping off part of it and making it its own annexed area that will become part of Russia or its own country. Right? That's what he's talking about with the UN Charter and international law. It's only Russia who's responsible for the armed aggression against Ukraine. Spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry of China, Zhao Lian, said that as one who started the Ukraine crisis and the biggest factor in fueling it, the U.S. What? The U.S. started the crisis? What? The U.S. needs to deeply reflect on its erroneous actions of exerting extreme pressure and fanning the flame on the Ukrainian issue and stop playing up the bloc confrontation and creating a new Cold War by taking advantage of the situation. I will remind you that it was Ukrainian First Lady saying, we need help. Why? Because of Russian airstrikes that kill children in their strollers and to protect Ukrainians from Russian terrorist attacks. It's not the U.S. that's flaming it. They want weapons so that they can defend themselves because it's Russia that is doing this. Remember, she's asking The answer is right here in Washington, D.C. Help us stop this terror, right? So again, it's like this weird smoke and mirrors thing. What's actually going on, and then how Russia and in some degree China is reinterpreting this in order to make it's like blaming the victim for what's going on. Okay, that's what I have today on Wednesday, July 20th. Thank you for your time. We'll be back tomorrow.